can be a really hard place to be in our faith, where we talk about, and we should, but we talk about all these super inspirational stories with this outpouring of the Spirit, and everyone's around you is crying and you're not, and you wonder what's wrong with you.
I stay.
I stay.
I stay.
I stay.
I stay.
I stay.
I'm staying here.
To whom else shall we go?
The Why I Stay podcast, where we find joy in staying in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm your host, Lindsay Clyde, and I want to ask you, why do you stay? Hello, friends. It's nice to be here with you in Why I Stay. I'll help you and you'll help me. How long is she going to go on? Welcome back, everybody. Today we have Amanda Curtis, and she is such a light, such a joy. And what I love is that she brought to my attention something that I personally need to work on. She talks about mourning with those who mourn and comforting those that stand in need of comfort, and how those are two separate things, even though they're in the same verse, like right next to each other. What does it mean to mourn? And is it different from comforting others? Great question. If you like this episode, if you like this podcast, if you like staying in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, will you share this episode or one of your favorite episodes? I would love for you to just send it to somebody saying, hey, I just heard this episode and I wanted to share it with you. It reminded me of you, or you're a great example of this, whatever. I could type it all out for you if you want. No, but your shares mean the world to me. Being able to get these voices, these testimonies of Jesus Christ out into the world, into as many hands as possible, is exactly what I'm trying to do. And I'm grateful for your help. Thanks for doing that. Okay, let's go. Amanda Curtis, boom. Hello and welcome back to the Why I Stay podcast, the podcast where we discover joy and light and excitement and peace and grace in living the gospel of Jesus Christ and remaining a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Today we have with us Amanda Curtis. Amanda, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, glad to be here.
We're glad to have you. All right. If this is your first time listening, welcome. We're going to do rapid fire get to know you questions. We're going to dig into an exploratory question with Amanda, and then we're going to ask her the question, why does she stay? Okay, Amanda, are you ready for the rapid fires?
Absolutely. You look evil there.
I know. Some people don't like to be pried into, but I love trying. So here we go.
I'm an open book.
Pry away. All right, Amanda, how old are you?
I am 42.
Do you have any nicknames?
No, and I actually despise the name Mandy. I've never liked it.
All right, I won't call you Mandy. Stay far away. What state do you live in?
I'm in Texas.
What's your favorite food?
Almost everything, including the incredibly broad category of Asian.
Okay, nice.
And it's really that big. Just love it all.
Yeah, it really is. It's not just Panda Express, right?
Right. No.
There's more. What is your current hobby?
I crochet. And I am making a Star Wars Grafgan. So little bitty squares showing different scenes and characters from the movies and TV shows.
That's awesome. Is it taking you a long time?
80. Yep.
Yeah,
I'll be 80.
Yeah. That's so cool. What is your most favorite calling you've ever had?
It's the one I have now, Relief Society Secretary. I love that I know everybody's names, and it's responsibility without all the responsibility.
Without the weight.
So,
yeah.
So it's been just a lot of fun. I also really have enjoyed getting to know the sisters in my presidency on a whole nother level. It's great.
Yeah, presidencies have a way of just kind of bringing people together that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise bonded with, but just something about the service really, really changes your relationships. I love it. What is a controversial opinion that you hold, like everybody loves Crocs, but you hate them?
I am a Texan who does not love Mexican food. It's probably at the bottom of my list. It's fine. If people are going, I'll go and I'll eat, but not my favorite.
Okay. Are you talking about like straight Mexican or the Tex-Mex
Oh, it'd be Tex-Mex.
variation?
That's all I know.
All right. What is your biggest dream?
I want to go on a cruise to Antarctica and an African safari.
Ooh,
Separate
that's
trips.
super. Yeah, all at this, all at the same time. That's got to be crazy suitcase packing if you're doing it all
Right?
at the same
weather.
time. Yeah. What is something about you that is the same now as it was when you were in high school?
So, with my high school group of friends, one of our favorite things to do was to get together and make snarky comments while watching a movie, not at the theater, in somebody's home. And
Yeah.
I still enjoy that very much. The people around me, not so much. So, I'm trying to learn to curb that habit.
I can relate with you on that one. Sometimes my husband and I will do that together until he suddenly loves the movie and he just wants to hear it. And he's like, "Will you stop?" I'm like, "What? You know, like this was safe to do like 2 movies ago. What happened?" But that's
Where's the
awesome.
line, man?
Yeah, where's the line? He needs to just tell me before we start, and then I'll just have to sit there with my band covering my mouth. Awesome. Bonus question. If you could play any of the characters in Star Wars movies, in any of the movies, which character would you play and why?
Ahsoka is my favorite, and so I'd have to go with Ahsoka. She stands up for what she believes in and walks away from everything she knew because that wasn't right for her anymore. And I just really love that she's strong, questioning, but also loyal at the same time.
Beautiful. All right, this is going to move us straight into our exploratory question. And what we're going to do today is we're going to go into one question with 2 different answers. So, Amanda, the question is, what is a basic gospel principle you have gained a testimony of recently? So you've got 2 of them. Let's start with number 1.
Okay, so I am divorced. I was married for 7.5 years. We had no children, and things were hard, and now here I am. And something that I've really thought about a lot recently is the concept of mourning with those who mourn versus comforting those in need of comfort. And I think for the majority of my life, I've equated the two. It just sort of flowed together into one idea. And it's, for my interpretation in my life, I feel that they are separate and distinct. I think that mourning with those that mourn is a more passive way to be with somebody in their trials, and it involves listening to them. At least that's what I need. So the comforting is more active, and I think for me, a lot of people have tried to comfort me when really I needed them to mourn with me. And in trying to comfort me, they often end up saying things that are the opposite of helpful. Now, I firmly believe in not taking offense and recognizing that the intent is good. So I'm never offended by it. If it's a situation where I do try to educate a little bit on why that might not be the best. But I'll use the word trigger. Everybody's triggers are different. So what might be wrong for me might be right for another person. So it just kind of depends on the situation and how close of friends we may be and how receptive I think they might be to that. And also, I don't want to upset them. Like, they're doing their best to comfort. So I try to tread lightly on that. But like, my favorite one, and I just laugh about it, is when people tell me that, like, if I'm sad about being single, and I've been divorced for 10 years now. So if I mention that and to a married friend and they say marriage isn't all it's cracked up to be, I'm just sitting here like, I am divorced. I think I know quite well that it's not everything it's cracked up to be.
What marriage was like. Yeah.
So maybe not that one. But I also, again, I understand. I understand where it comes from. Another short one is, if I'm sad that I don't have children, because I did want children. Oh, you can take mine for a day. Like, no. I'm actually a teacher and I work with kids every day, so I get my fill. But I want my
Of
own
other
children.
people's children. Yeah.
That's right. I don't need yours to the mix. So but I will babysit for you if it works out. So I think comforting in the best way involves mourning first and listening to that person and understanding where they're coming from and what they're struggling with, and validating. Um, just, and we don't always have the right words. I know that I have stepped on people's triggers before. I think we all do at some point. We just can't know everybody's hot spots. It's impossible. But if we sit and listen to them, if we take time to learn their love languages in particular, I think we can better minister to each other and come to a place where we're truly helping the way we want to help that person. So I think that mourning and comforting, we need to treat them as separate, but they're kind of reciprocal in a way. So that's something that I've just really learned and tried to implement more in my life, as I know I have not always been the best listener either. I mean, it's hard.
And I think we've all had experiences where we can think back and say, oh, like I shouldn't have said that. And we also have experiences where we think back and say, oh, I shouldn't have been offended by that. I love the way you describe this, because the way you describe it sounds like working to be like Christ on both ends of the like giving of the mourning and receiving, or the giving of the comfort and receiving of the comfort. The person who is giving the comfort needs to try and be more like Christ in the way of discerning what is actually needed through the Spirit, letting the Spirit guide, and trying to be more careful and as thoughtful as Jesus Christ would be if he were here. And then also on the receiving end, trying to be more Christ-like in the way that we give grace to people who accidentally step on our triggers. I love how you said that. Or, Jesus just constantly was forgiving people. And at the end of his life, they crucified him and he still forgave them. And so I think what you're describing is such a great opportunity, no matter what side you're on, is to try and be more Christ-like. And the point of just that comfort and mourning are different. I've never heard it put that way. And I think that is so profound and so needed for us all to hear and to learn. I think we often feel uncomfortable with uncomfortable emotions. We can hardly sit with our own emotions. How are we supposed to go and sit with our friends' hard emotions? And I think just that transparency of, hey, I'm not great at this, but I'm just going to try and sit here and be here for you. So that's my question to follow up with this one before we move on to the next is, if someone's trying to help in a hard situation, whether it's after a divorce or a loss of a loved one or, a faith crisis or whatever, in your experience, what would be helpful to try and gauge what you're needing at this time? What kind of words should we say? What kind of questions should we ask?
I think what I've started doing is just admitting, being vulnerable and saying, I don't have the words for you. I haven't been through this experience. Especially if it's something I haven't experienced, so approach it that way. And I am sorry for what you're going through. I have sympathy for you. I'm here for you, and let me know what you need, but also, can I bring you dinner? Try to be specific on how to help somebody as well. It's hard because sometimes you don't always know as the person who's mourning or in grief, you don't always know what you want and what would make it better. But just I think it would be just, I'm here for you. Call me when you need me. I'll come over if you need a shoulder to cry on. I'm not a natural hugger because of my upbringing, but I do love them. So maybe asking if they want a hug, that physical comfort, especially because I don't have it in my life. It means a lot to me just to say, I'm here for you. Can we have a hug? I'll be here for you in the future. I think that's what I would say.
That's so interesting about the physical too. That's just something that we probably would never think of. So I guess, yeah, just that transparency is so important that you described, the authenticity and the vulnerability of being like, I don't know, like, please be honest with me. And I guess on the receiving end as well, being, able to openly say, like, I don't know what I need right now. Or sometimes I feel uncomfortable asking people for help. Like, my personality is to be really pushy. Like, I'm going to do something for you, even if you tell me no, because I try and see through, like, are they actually saying no, or they just don't want to put me out, right? And this is just such a difficult topic, and something that's like you said, going to be different for every single person. But just going by the Spirit and practicing and being willing to put yourself in those awkward situations to learn is what's needed, I think, and you've described it beautifully.
I think another thing too, I mentioned it before, is like love languages. Like I like
Mm.
time. I like to talk. I'm an auditory processor, so I go through my feelings that way. But I'm good friends with somebody who doesn't want to ever talk to. She's an extreme introvert, and she doesn't want that, but she wants a gift. Just knowing what will help somebody, and love languages are a great place to start,
Mm-hmm.
along with that discernment of the spirit. And so that would be another suggestion.
Yeah, I think that framework, the love languages, has come in handy a lot of times. Can we go into the next one? Okay, so what is the second
Absolutely.
gospel principle you've gained a testimony of recently?
This one's a big one for me. It's in the Book of Mormon, there's Sam and there's Nephi. We hear about Nephi a ton. We talk about him a ton. We look up to him as we should and emulate his example, and we hardly ever hear about Sam. And not all of us are Nephis. I am not a Nephi. I am a Sam. And it says in the scriptures, Sam believed on Nephi's words. And I had to learn to be okay with being a Sam, that it's okay and it's actually needful. If everybody was a Nephi, if everybody was a leader, it would be a mess. You need both personalities. That isn't to say you can't question or search out answers for yourself. And I'm sure Sam did that too. We don't want to be blind sheep following, but it's okay to also be a follower sometimes. And again, the word of the day, I think, is discernment, and just using your discernment of when to follow, when to question, when to push back maybe a little bit. But it was really hard for me growing up. I've never really questioned the church. I was brought up in the church. It's just what I do. I don't know that I have any huge testimony building stories either. It's just kind of a slow and steady wins the race. And that can be a really hard place to be in our faith, where we talk about, and we should, but we talk about all these super inspirational stories with this outpouring of the spirit, and everyone's around you is crying and you're not, and you wonder what's wrong with you, but you're still sitting in that pew, you're still there, you're still doing what you need to do, and you're still following Christ's example and always trying to be better. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Agree 100% wholeheartedly. And I think even with my personality being more like, I want to take control of situations and I want to lead and I want to be upfront and helping people and doing those things. I mean, I think there's just always times to be a Sam sometimes, like even if, and there might be a time where you're called to be a Nephi, right? And it pushes us out of our comfort zones. But everybody, I think it's a part of Zion, and a thing that we all need to really think about is, how do we value the person who, like the opposite personality from us, right? It can be really easy to slip into pride, thinking like, oh, the Nephi is the best, or the Alma the Younger getting struck by spiritual lightning is the best story. But the stalwart, like the consistent, like we need those people. We need the people who are steady and willing to believe, because if all of us, even if all of us were questioners or rebels, like if we all were like that, we would be in chaos. And just noticing the quieter, the background people who might just, be okay to step back, and that's who they are. Just okay to believe, to take time to notice those people in your ward, in your family, in your community, and just say, you know what, thank you for your example. I don't know, what have you found is like validating to you?
I was listening to another church podcast. I couldn't even tell you which one it was at this point. I'm a podcast junkie. But they had mentioned that in testimony meetings, we always use the words, I know, but we need to be more comfortable with saying, I want to know, or I think, or I believe. I can't remember all the phrases they used, but I like the I want to know idea, at least, of standing up and saying, I don't know everything, but I do want to know those things. My favorite Bible story is the man whose son was healed by Jesus. Before his son was healed, the father was asked about his faith. And he tells Christ, Lord, I believe, help thou my unbelief. So even a man who believed that Christ could heal his son still had some doubt. And it's okay. And even if it's not doubt, if it's just like, I don't feel that fire, but I do feel the guiding spirit with me all the time. I don't feel the absence of it. Therefore, that must signify the presence of it. When I was in college, I would ask returned missionaries all the time, how did you feel the Spirit? How did you feel the Spirit? Because I knew it was different for everybody, and I couldn't figure out how I did. And then very, very recently, I heard this quote from the talk that I can't remember. Oh, no, it was a youth face-to-face, I'm pretty sure. And the question was asked, how do I feel the Spirit? And he answered, you're asking the wrong question. It's not how do I feel the Spirit, it's how do I know when I don't feel the Spirit? And that was really transformative for me. And I think that more people are like me than I know in church, because it's not
Don't
a
talk
false,
about it.
it's not a false front, but we do talk more about the big experiences and not the day-to-day. And it makes sense. That's just kind of how we are all the time. But to know that now has been just like, I can be at peace when I wasn't at peace with it before.
And I think what you're talking about reminds me of Alma talking about the seed, having a desire to plant the seed and applauding that desire, just making it more normal to say, I'm so grateful that you even have a desire. Because a lot of times we find people who just feel like, I can't believe, like, I just can't do it. I can't get myself to believe. And then you could ask them, do you want to believe? Because that's all you need. And even at that stage, even if you didn't want to believe, you could pray for that desire. If you knew in the grand scheme of things that you wanted to get to that point where you did know, or you made the steps, I now I want to believe, then I believe, and then I know, and then you go through that cycle over and over again. You can pray for that desire. And I can witness that is such a refining and beautiful process. And we don't need to be ashamed of any step of the way. It is exactly what we are supposed to be doing. And talking about it, shining some light on it, is just going to help others realize, okay, I can do this too. This is totally normal. This is absolutely a part of God's plan. So I'm glad that you're bringing this up.
I really am an open book. I'm a talker. My filter is broken sometimes, but that can, like all personality traits, there's pros and cons, right? And something that I've been feeling a real almost calling to do is to be that person who is vulnerable in Relief Society, Sunday school, ministering, what have you, to say, I struggle with reading my scriptures, but I know if I do it consistently, that struggle diminishes until I enjoy it. Things like, it's okay to feel this way, even when everyone around you is saying, I love the scriptures so much, it's all I ever want to do all day long. Not that anybody's really saying that, but
I've never heard that before.
That's hyperbole. Not everybody is emotionally in a place where they feel comfortable to be that vulnerable, and that's okay. We're all in different places on our path. And so I try to be that person without dipping too far into negativity, to still have some positivity to it. And maybe not every Sunday, but when it's appropriate, to bring up my struggles so that people know that they're not alone. Because I have felt alone in some of those things for 42 years. And it's only recently that I've come to have some measure of peace about it. And it's because I open up about it, and then every time one, maybe two people come to me and express their gratitude for my openness and willingness to talk about these things. And so it has become really important to me when I feel moved by the Spirit to bring them up.
And so how do we help others gain a testimony of this? Like, what would you encourage them to do to improve their testimony of this principle?
Oh, goodness. That's a deep question. It is so personal. Praying, like you said, for sure. And also trying it out maybe in maybe a one-on-one or small group setting, not necessarily in a whole group and not at a testimony meeting, but just start being more vulnerable and open in places of safety with people that you're safe with, and then opening up just a little bit more to a few more people, you also have to come to terms with your own emotional journey too, I think. Like, I don't know that I could have done this 10 years ago post divorce. Like, it's been a
Sure.
10-year journey. So, and beyond that, really. So just being patient with yourself, listen to others, and try it out step by step for yourself.
This is not scripture at all, but what you're talking about reminds me of a book I read by Brené Brown called The Gifts of Imperfection. And she talks about talking to people, safe people, who will catch you and will empathize and not make your embarrassing moments worse or your like deep down problems worse. But just the freedom that comes from starting that journey of being more vulnerable with others. And I think like even if you're not a natural extrovert, I mean, even if you are introverted, this can have benefits. And I think you can just involve the Lord with this. Jesus wants to help heal every single part of you that's broken. Sometimes we think, oh, we got to wait until the next life for that to be taken care of. But the more that you learn, the more that you grow, the more that you hold on, even in the tough times when you're not loving your scripture study, even in the times that you're so angry, you just don't even want to pray. You don't even want to, even open your mind to God because you're just so frustrated and devastated. The more that you just continue to engage in that wrestle of improving yourself, reaching for the divine, even when everything inside of you says, pull back, pull back, pull back. That's where the strength comes from. That's when you hit your depth of humility and he brings in all of his power and you're able to be lifted from that point onward. And so I would just encourage the listeners to take your advice and follow your example despite personality differences and things, and just start to be open. Let your heart be open to God and to those around you, and just see what happens. Just watch the miracles come in.
Like that.
Oh, I love this conversation. You have brought so much perspective into these two things that I had not really delved into too much in my own personal study. So I'm really grateful for that. And I'm excited to give it to the world, to let other people start on their journeys of learning these things too. And I really feel like those two principles go well together, that the journey involves both, and pushing yourself outside your comfort zone and allowing yourself to be open, whether you're receiving or you're giving or you're just holding on by your pinkies. Like
we do so often.
Things, I know, and we do.
More than people know.
More than people know. So know that you're not alone, listener, and whatever you're trying to hold on to, if you're trying to salvage your faith, you are not alone, and you are more than welcome to stay for every single part of your journey here with us in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Okay, Amanda, that brings us to the final question. Are you ready?
Yes.
Question mark?
Question mark?
All right. Amanda, why do you stay in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
So I've thought about this when I agreed to come on this podcast, and I still don't have the one answer, but the answer is I can't imagine my life any other way. And to be fair, I was inactive for 1 year. There was a lot it had to do with the marriage issues and things, and it was just almost purposeless. Like Sunday morning rolled around, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with myself. And I am so much happier when I go to church. I'm happier when I confront my struggles and try to overcome those things and do a little better every day and learn how to forgive myself when I fail and do better and just recommit. And that is, to me, very empowering and gives a lot of peace that I need in this crazy life. Like so many of us, I live a busy, busy life. And I think we all need peace. And this is where we find it. It's through the gospel of Jesus Christ.
This is where we find it. Amanda, thank you so much for taking the time, being open, being vulnerable to be here and to share your experiences with us. I know that this is going to help so many people, and hopefully it sparks. I want at least 10 people to start their journey of being a little bit more open with their ministering with their families or whatever. being able to mourn with those that mourn and realize when it's time to comfort, and also just recognizing it's okay to share where you're at. It's okay to share those things, even if you're not proud of them. So, Amanda, thank you so much for taking your time and coming on, and we wish you the best.
Oh, thank you. I've had a wonderful time doing it. It always helps my testimony to share these things. So I thank you.
Right, guys, I was edified. I'll be vulnerable right now and tell you that my biggest thing is that I've never been super great at mourning with those who mourn. My natural tendency is to be a fixer. And so I come to comfort, I come to fix. And if any of you who are listening, I have tried to comfort you. I'm sorry if it didn't work out, and if I stumbled over my words, or if I said something that didn't help or made it worse. I'm trying. I'm trying. And I'll admit it. And I will tell you now that I know that Jesus Christ can help me be better at that, and at accepting other people's mourning for me and feeling that love instead of just letting it bounce off. So, what's it for you? What popped into your mind today during this episode? What could you work on? Is it raising your hand in elders quorum and saying something that you're struggling with? Is it opening up to your ministering sister about what you really do need help with when she asks, what can she do for you? What is it for you? Find it, write it down, ask the Lord to help you, and you will find that He comes. He comes when you call. Seek Him diligently and you will find Him. And part of that is growing, and it's the awkward growing pains, and we're all here for it. It's so nice. It's so nice to grow. It feels a little tough, but man, looking back, I'm so grateful that I endured. I'm grateful that I've engaged in the wrestle of trying to be more like my Savior. And I know you do too. I know you feel that too. That's why you're here. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your shares, and thank you for staying with us. We'll see you next week. The Why I Stay podcast is a faith-based podcast exploring the lives and experiences of members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This podcast is not produced or endorsed by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but we do love that church. All rights reserved. And a great big shout out to Fast Sounds from Pixabay for the amazing and jammin' intro-outro music. Thanks, guys.